Here's a question. How does a car company survive for more than a century, never selling more than 4,000 vehicles a year? When the company is Rolls-Royce.
So many of the ultra-wealthy people who own Rolls-Royce cars would also like to have a Rolls-Royce SUV.
Rolls-Royce confirmed its new Bentley Continental fighter more than 2 years ago, but the new, smaller model has rolled under the radar ever since.
Rolls-Royce just announced that in 2014, for the first time ever, it sold more than 4,000 of its ultra-luxury automobiles, and now it's talking about expanding into a new market.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of the greatest success stories of our times. Today, we're talking about Rolls-Royce, the iconic brand synonymous with luxury, style, and engineering excellence. But to your surprise, we are not talking about Rolls-Royce, the car company. We're talking about instead Rolls-Royce, the company which is one of the biggest dominating players in the aerospace industry with more than 18% market share. Its engines, especially the Trent engine family, recording more than 100 million flying hours with more than 13,000 engines in service, thereby turning the company into not just a disruptor but rather a revolutionary in the sector. But its dominance is not why we're discussing Rolls-Royce as a case study today. We're discussing so as to clearly understand how pivoting from its core nature of product-centric to a more customer-centric can not only elevate a business by leaps and bounds, but rather help become an industry leader instead. It was Rolls-Royce that introduced to the world the revolutionary subscription economy concepts such as servitization, under which the company realized that it could disrupt the industry by offering new type of business model, one that shifted the focus from products to services. This innovative business model not only changed the way customers thought about owning and operating aircraft engines, but also brought in a whole new level of reliability and efficiency. Following upon and in line with its customer-centric approach, this further led the company to introduce another revolutionary model known as funding the unfundable, which transformed the whole supply chain of the company into a robust, risk-averse and operational beast. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself. So in today's episode, let's explore in detail how these models and programs introduced by Rolls-Royce defined it as the dominant and revolutionary force in the aerospace domain, and as a result, evolved the company into a more quintessential business case study illustration. Chapter 1. The Advent of Servitization and Birth of Power by the Hour. Starting off with servitization, which is a business concept in which companies shift their focus from selling their products to providing services that enhance the value of those products. This can involve offering customers the option to pay for use of the product rather than outright purchasing it, as well as providing ongoing maintenance and support services. The roots of servitization can be traced back to the pre-industrial era, where blacksmiths and mechanics made a name for themselves from rest by providing free services to the products sold. But due to lack of competition, no one paid much attention to it back then, until when in the post-industrialization era, the competition, especially among manufacturing firms, became severe, and they started to realize the potential of offering a complete package of products and services to their customers. This is when Rolls-Royce took notice of servitization and came out with Power by the Hour model to differentiate itself from its competitors. The basic idea behind Power by the Hour is that instead of selling engines to airlines, Rolls-Royce would provide them with the power they needed to fly their planes and charge them at a fee based on the number of hours the engines were being used for. To illustrate how Power by the Hour works, let's take a hypothetical example. Imagine that an airline has just purchased a fleet of new planes and needs to equip them with engines. Instead of buying the engines outright, the airline enters into a Power by the Hour agreement with Rolls-Royce. Under this agreement, Rolls-Royce will provide engines, maintenance, support services required to keep the engines running smoothly. In exchange, the airline pays a fee based on the number of hours the engines are used. Let's assume the fee is $10,000 per engine per hour. This means that if an engine is used for 1000 hours in a year, the airline will pay Rolls-Royce 10 million for that engine. And if we compare this to a traditional model where the airline bought the engine for 10 million and then pays 1 million for its repairs every year, thereby accruing 10 million more over 10 years, the power by the hour model seems a godsend for the airlines. Apart from this, there are other key advantages to this model as well. Firstly, by entering into a power by the hour agreement, the airline is able to shift financial risk of engine ownership from itself to Rolls-Royce. This is because Rolls-Royce is responsible for providing the engines and ensuring that they are operating correctly. If there is an issue with the engine, it's up to Rolls-Royce to fix it, not the airlines. Secondly, because the fee is based on the number of hours the engine is used, the airline only pays for the power it actually needs. This means that if the engine is not used, the airline doesn't need to pay anything. This can be especially beneficial for airlines that operate seasonal routes, as they can save more money during off-season. However, this also offered benefits for Rolls-Royce's perspective. 1. Increased revenues. By charging customers on an hourly basis, Rolls-Royce is able to generate a steady stream of revenue over a longer period of time. This helps to stabilize its financial performance and reduce the impact of economic cycles. And 2. Improved customer relationships. The Power by the Hour program creates a closer relationship between Rolls-Royce and its customers, as the company becomes responsible for the performance of the engine. This helps to build trust and improve customer satisfaction. And if you would have noticed, these benefits vividly portray how Power by the Hour formulates a win-win situation for both the parties involved, which is why it has been a revolutionary business model and is said to be the birthing of the subscription economy as well. But did Rolls-Royce's geniusness stop there? What do you think? Chapter 2. Taking customer centricity to the max. The total cost of ownership. Alright, so now we know. By Power by the Hour, Rolls-Royce was just offering one customized solution as a service, which, as we saw, helped airline with upfront cost savings with the engine. But then in the early 90s, airlines were facing financial difficulties due to increased fuel prices, increased competition, and declining passenger traffic. In response to these challenges, airlines were looking for ways to reduce cost and improve efficiency. Enter Rolls-Royce with another game-changing business model known as the total cost of ownership. This is a more comprehensive approach that aims to reduce the total cost of owning and operating an aircraft by considering all the factors that contribute to it. This includes not only the maintenance cost but also fuel consumption, repair costs, and resale value. By considering all these factors, Rolls-Royce helps its customers to make more informed decisions about their aircraft and identify areas where they can reduce costs. So if you analyze closely, this is more of a consulting service based on the plane's existing characteristics to make a more informed decision towards cost savings. For example, let's consider a fictitious airline company that operates 10 aircrafts. The company has been using Power by the Hour program for maintenance for many years and has been happy with the predictable cost structure. However, the company's management decides to adopt a total cost of ownership strategy and engages with Rolls-Royce to perform a comprehensive review of the cost of operating their aircraft. Now, during the review, Rolls-Royce identifies that the airline company can reduce its fuel consumption by 10% by implementing more efficient flight patterns and upgrading its engines to newer models. This reduction in fuel consumption alone results in a cost saving of $1 million per year. Additionally, the review also identifies that the airline company can reduce its maintenance costs by 5% by adopting a more proactive maintenance approach. So in this example, the total cost of ownership strategy has allowed the airline company to identify areas for cost reduction and then go beyond the traditional Power by the Hour program. By considering the total cost of owning and operating an aircraft, the company was able to achieve significant cost savings and improve its financial performance. Hence, another revolutionary customer-centric approach introduced as well as perfected. Chapter 3. Nurturing and helping the internal customers. Rolls-Royce's unique leverage as a leader has been majorly credited to its policy of treating its suppliers as its customers. This program offers these suppliers access to financing options that would be otherwise unavailable to them, allowing them to grow and support Rolls-Royce in its operations. You see, in a conventional firm, traditional financing options like bank loans or bonds may not be available to these suppliers due to lack of collateral or credit history. But with Rolls-Royce's Funding the Unfundable program, the supplier is empowered to receive financing through the company, which acts as a guarantee for the loan. So what exactly is the program all about? Well, simply put, it's a way for small and medium enterprises to access extended funding in order to help them to cover their trade payables, which are the bills the companies have to pay for the goods or services they received from the suppliers. So now it's time to break this down with a simple example. Let's say you run a small business that sells airplane parts to Rolls-Royce. Your business generates $5 lakh in revenues every year, and your trade payables typically amount to $2 lakh. With the traditional 30 to 90 day funding profile, you would only be able to access a maximum of $2 lakh in funding for a period of 1 year. But with the Funding the Unfundable program, things are different. You can now access a maximum of $2 lakh in funding for a period of 3 years, thereby providing access to extended funding for a longer period of time, giving you more financial stability and peace of mind. But what about the trade payables? Well, the program allows you to use the extended funding to cover your trade payables, which means you no longer have to worry about paying your bills on time and manage your cash flow with more independence and with deferment. But then the question arises, what exactly are the benefits for Rolls-Royce over here? Well, let's imagine a small aerospace company, ABC Aero, who is a supplier to Rolls-Royce and sells parts to them for their aircraft engines. The typical 30 to 90 day funding profile that was previously in place for ABC Aero's trade payables, which is the amount they owe to their suppliers, has been increased to a 3-year maximum period. Before the introduction of the Funding the Unfundable program, ABC Aero had to pay its suppliers within 90 days of risk. Before the introduction of the Funding the Unfundable program, ABC Aero had to pay its suppliers within 90 days or risk damaging its credit rating and potentially losing access to funding from banks. However, with the increased funding profile, ABC Aero now has the ability to hold on to its cash for up to 3 years rather than having to pay suppliers within 90 days. As a result, ABC Aero can use the freed up cash to invest in new technologies and improve their business operations. This in turn allows them to provide better services and parts to Rolls-Royce, leading to a more efficient and effective supply chain for both the companies. So by providing its suppliers with access to long-term funding, Rolls-Royce is able to improve the stability and competitiveness of its supply chain, ultimately leading to increased efficiency and lower costs for the company, which is why it treats its suppliers as customers as well. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Rolls-Royce provided a business case to the whole world, that pivoting from a product-centric to a customer-centric organization while helping your internal stakeholders grow the same way as your customers can define the business path to glory and set an example for ages to be studied and follow. And that was the episode, ladies and gentlemen. If you liked the episode, please hit that like button below and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We will be back with more such knowledge-filled content. See you until next time. Mindfulness signing off.